No, he went like this. We on? We're on. We're on.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Delhi Township Board of Trustees meeting for June the 29th, 2016. As is our usual practice, we will begin the evening with a moment of silence. Tonight's moment of silence is dedicated to the Orlando tragedy, dedicated to those who have been affected by this, the people who we give our sympathies to and our support. So, with the people of Orlando in mind, please have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, tonight's going to seem a little bit out of order to everyone because I'm going to open the motions. It will be motion 2016-099 to appoint the Township Administrator, Pete Landrum, as acting fiscal officer for this meeting.
I move motion 2016-099 to appoint the Township Administrator, Pete Landrum, as fiscal officer.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion.
Okay, Mr. Landrum, you're the acting fiscal officer for the evening.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, motion 2016-0100, approve the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting held on June 8th, 2016, and dispense with the reading.
I've moved motion 2016-0100 to approve the minutes.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-101, approve bills for payment.
I've moved motion 2016-101 to approve bills for payment.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-102, approve the payment of overtime for pay period ending June 7th, 2016.
I've moved motion 2016-102 to approve the payment of overtime.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-103, approve the payment of overtime for pay period ending June 21st, 2016.
I've moved motion 2016-103 to approve payment of overtime.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-104, approves the hiring of David L. Huffman Jr., part-time lodge and senior and community center custodian with Parks and Recreation Department at a rate of $9 per hour effective June 30th, 2016.
I've moved motion 2016-104 to approve the hiring of David L. Huffman Jr.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-105, approve the designation of Greg DeLong, Community Development Director, to represent Delhi Township on the Mount St. Joseph University Co-op Advisory Board for the term of 3 years.
I move motion 2016-105 to approve the designation of Greg DeLong on the Community Development Director to represent Delhi.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations, Greg. Great appointment.
Motion 2016-106, accept a voluntary resignation of Ryan S. Burns, part-time firefighter paramedic in the fire department, effective June 18th, 2016.
I've moved motion 2016-106 to accept the voluntary resignation of Ryan S. Burns.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-107, approves the hiring of Tyler M. Kresser, seasonal maintenance worker in the Public Works Department at a rate of $11 per hour effective June 30th, 2016.
I've moved motion 2016-107 to approve the hiring of Tyler M. Kresser.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-108, approves the promotion of Derek M. Hammond from part-time firefighter EMT to part-time firefighter paramedic, effective June 30th, 2016, per collective bargaining agreement with the Delhi Firefighters Association.
I move motion 2016-108 to approve the promotion of Derek M. Hammond.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes. Presentations this evening. I think, Mr. Landrum, we did add a few things to this area, right?
We'll go do it under department.
Under department heads, okay. Trustee correspondence, Trustee Oswald.
Just want to remind everyone, I get a lot of questions when they see me. I already talked to Greg DeLong about this. A lot of people have questions about fences, decks, various projects they're doing now. It's summertime construction. We have the website. We put a lot of time into our website, and make sure you look at that. Go to zoning. You can get all the contact information. You can get questions. The other questions I get a lot of, when are the bicentennial events? Again, follow Facebook. Go to the website. You can find a list of all the bicentennial events. Use that information because obviously we want you there, but especially the zoning. If you have any questions about permits or what you're doing, just contact zoning. They'll be more than happy to answer those questions.
Great. Trustee Sturts.
Nothing today. Thank you.
All right. I have a special thank you out to the veterans for the great fishing event. And it was a little warm out there, guys, but I think the fish were still biting, and everyone there seemed to have a great time. So thank you for supporting the bicentennial, and it was a great military display. And hopefully we'll get more recognition and for the Veterans Association and more attendance into things like Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Okay. Report from Fiscal Officer. Anything, Mr. Landrum?
No, but we have a public hearing, so that
all
should
right.
do it.
Public hearing. We do have need for public hearing. May I have the motion, please, Mr. Landrum?
Motion 2016-109, approve the opening of the public hearing for the 2017 tax budget.
I move motion 2016-109 to approve the opening of the public hearing for the 2017 tax budget.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Public hearing is open. Mr. Landrum.
Yes, as we have advertised in June 8th as required, 10-day prior notice of this tax budget hearing. We have also complied by providing a public copy located downstairs that was available for public inspection. We also loaded it on our website. So we have met all the requirements of public notice regarding this. Regarding the tax budget itself, I will know it's kind of unusual adopting a tax budget without the fiscal officer, but Jim has reviewed this as well as the FAB board has been sent this, and I received no responses or questions. One thing I do want to note, this is a very preliminary budget. This is a budget that can go through many changes once we actually start the budget processing that we start usually in August. We usually have our budget hearings sometime either end of October, first part of November. We have a couple nights of hearings that we invite the public to come. They're public, public can ask questions, and that's really gets into the meat and potatoes of the 2017 budget once we get to that point. So the numbers are very preliminary. I know why the county does this, coming from county experience from years. It's a good idea to have a first. You got to really remember, a lot of communities are small, villages and smaller townships, and they may not even be up on their budgets as much, and this forces them in advance, at least 6 months in advance, to look at next year. And sometimes, they may look at it and say, oh my gosh, if I just duplicate my budget, I'm in the red, I'm negative. And that causes them, that gives them advance notice that they have to take action, whether a tax increase or start cutting budgets or something. We're not in that situation. Our balances are fine. As is, the budget that's being presented assumes the park levy passage. If that doesn't, that would just, those dollars would, if the board decides that, it would go back on to the general fund subsidy. It reflects the fire department going negative because this will be the fourth year of the budget, so it should be. Reflects the police almost balanced. They're a little negative, but again, this is early and preliminary. The other big negative on the tax budget is, as far as cash-wise, when I say negative, meaning you spending more than you take in, what is the tax, the TIF budget. And that's because of the firehouse having to, some of the expenses from this firehouse that we're building will be in 17. But no worries, the TIF budget, even if we spend every dime that we're budgeting, we'd still have, cash balance of like 1.1 million, which is important for us to maintain a good TIF fund balance for economic development possibilities, which we are definitely hoping to get that chance. So that's pretty well it. Like I said, if anybody has any questions, it's been posted. We are just, like I said, it's very preliminary, but department heads are here as well if anybody would have to entertain a question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Landrum. Number 4, did you get that possible misprint corrected under
Yes.
Road and Bridge?
Yes.
So that's been corrected, so we're good to go there. I think that was the big question that I had, besides the one that I did note, the transfer in on the parks.
Right.
And that includes
The transfer.
the optimistic position of the park levy.
Right. The transfer from the park was only $8,000 reflected in this budget, which means that is just for the grass cutting and reimbursement of things that they do for the admin area.
Okay, well, speaking as your previous fiscal officer, this is your first glance at next year's budget. It is not finalized, it has not been drilled down, but it has been reviewed by Mr. Lubian. Has the FAB board looked at the tax budget?
FAB was sent it and
Okay.
with instructions to get with me if they had any concerns or questions, and I have not received any.
All right. Trustee Oswald, any questions?
None at this time.
Trustee Sturts?
Not at this time, thank you.
All right, I have no public comments signed in regarding the tax budget, so if I could have the next motion, please.
Motion 2016-110 approves the closing of the public hearing for the 2017 tax budget.
I move motion 2016-110 to approve the closing of the public hearing.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes. Public hearing closed. Reports from departments. I believe we will begin with Josh Torbeck and Greg together? Or just Greg?
Just Greg.
Just Greg. Greg DeLong, Economic Development, Community Development Person. Thanks, Greg.
Welcome to join. Good evening, everyone. I'm Greg DeLong, Community Development Director for Delhi Township, and we have been asked to come here tonight. And this is just a brief presentation to basically describe where you can park your recreational vehicles on your private property in a residential zoning district. So what is a recreational vehicle? There's the definitions pretty much. It's a vehicle primarily designed for recreational, camping, and travel use, and it includes travel trailers, campers, camper trailers, boats, and self-propelled motorhomes. And there's some pictures of examples of what we are talking about. One of the questions we typically get is, can I place my recreation vehicle on my property? And there is a couple answers here. We're going to keep this simple. They may be stored at any time during the year on your residential property as long as they are inside of a garage, inside of an accessory building, or parked in the rear of your property and not less than 3 feet from a property line. If the above cannot be met, there are additional regulations in place on how we can control how long they can be placed on your property, and that's going to be on the next slide. So yes, you can store them, but there is limitations on how you can store them on your property. When can I place my recreation vehicle in my driveway, and can I place it there to load and unload it and for cleaning purposes? And the answer again is yes, as long as it is on a paved surface and you have received permission from the zoning inspector. Typically, we ask residents to either call or email us and just give us the times or the dates you're looking at placing it on your driveway. We understand people need this amenity for cleaning their boats, especially if they take it on a filthy lake or a river, and if they just need to unload or load their campers. The vehicle can be stored out on your driveway for a period no longer than 48 consecutive hours in a 7-day period. We do ask that no utilities be connected to the vehicle, and that there is no occupancy of the vehicle or a business being operated out of your vehicle while it does sit in your driveway. And I can say in my experience that has happened in other jurisdictions I've worked in. And the big thing is that the vehicle does not overhang a sidewalk or the street right of way. We want to make sure if you are storing it on your property that public safety is important and that you are respecting that. Here are 2 examples of where a recreation vehicle can be placed on your property if you're placing it outdoors. The one on the left is an example of a house that's mid-block. That means you got a house on both sides of you. As you can see, it is limited to the back of your yard, and that again has to be 3 feet from those property lines. The example on the right, and this is where it gets kind of dicey for residents in the township. Everyone loves a corner lot, but when you have a corner lot, that means there's more rules that come with it. So this is just one example. There's going to be so many different scenarios when it comes to this. So, but your front yard or your rear yard on a corner lot can be actually the side of your house by definition of zoning. That's why when it comes to corner lots, we ask people to please contact us. We can direct you on where you can put it if you are planning on storing it on your property, just so we can help you out with that, because corner lots can get very confusing, because like I said, what people vision their rear yard to be is not by zoning what a rear yard is. It's just a definition terminology. So that is our department. Contact information, we do ask people to either call us at 922-2705, or you can email us at zoning@delhi.oh.us, or you can always stop by and visit us. We always like to see a friendly face. And if you have any questions for me?
I don't have any.
Trustee Sturts?
Clear to me.
Okay, good. If you ever want another presentation on another topic, just let us know. We're happy to come here for you. So,
Thanks, Greg.
you're welcome.
Mr. Landrum, do you have another presentation?
Yeah, we have two more things to talk
Okay.
about. First one, I wanted to very much clarify something from last meeting that the board passed. They passed a resolution approving the township, the community development department, to submit a grant application, and we referred to them as installation of bike lanes. And it's just kind of a little poor terminology on our part. We never, envisioned lanes. There's been a lot of rumors started and a lot of different things, and I even had the county engineer call me. And we've been working on this for quite a while. And lanes, the word terminology, potato, whatever, tomato, and they are different. So we have to educate ourselves about lanes and versus bike paths. Our envision, and we know that through our research, that there's no bike lanes in Hamilton County that's approved by the engineer on a county road. Okay, city of Cincinnati or different cities they have their own roads, so they make their own rules to that degree. But a county road such as Delhi Pike, we know we need the involvement of county engineer Ted Hubbard or whoever it would be at that point in time. With that, we knew that we had to look throughout Hamilton County at a success story of who has had one approved. And it wasn't too far and too hard. Actually, Josh was, our Torbeck, our parks director, was part of that, I guess he said, in helping Anderson Township get their bike path. So I said all that to say that this was to study the economic impact and assessment. When we submitted the grant, okay, here's the first two paragraphs of our letter, and as you can see, there's nowhere on there that it says lanes, installation of bike paths, Delhi Bike Path Project, as well as bike paths. So very much a path. It's separate. And I guess if you want to know what the difference of a lane versus a path is, a lane is where the road just has a white line or a dotted line on the side, and you're trying to squeeze a car by a bike that's on the road. A path is separated by grass or by some divider that it's separate from the road. Much safer. I will say this, in my opinion, a bike lane, I can understand definitely why anybody would oppose a bike lane on Delhi Pike itself, from the university to Walgreens, basically, is because that's so narrow. Somebody would get killed doing that. So it's just not unless we made it a 4-lane highway or something wide. So a bike path, we feel, is the direction we're looking at to have this, hopefully have funding available so that we can do an assessment on that. That is the first step. So nobody has to worry about that we're doing this or doing that right now and going to start construction tomorrow. That's just, if you're hearing that, it's just simply not true. We're at the first part, early phases of trying to get funding to do an assessment of basically the economic impact and can it be done. So if anybody has any further questions, myself, Greg DeLong will be more than happy to answer any questions. But it's early, and we hope we get some success for the bike path because there is grant opportunities out there, and it's, as you see, bike lanes or bike paths, it is what is desirable. That's the other thing. Remember, our economic strategic redevelopment plan recommended that we look into this. So we're part of the implementation process of following the plan. It may refer to it as a lane as well, but again, it's kind of a little bit of semantics. We're looking towards a path. Any questions on that topic? Okay.
Trustees?
No questions.
No questions, thank you.
All right.
I remember the whole Stantec presentation, and the idea of a bike path, bike lane came up at that point. So, the fact that the university representatives were part of that.
Yes, and we, to do this grant, we got supporting letters from the Mount St. Joseph University, from the Sisters of Charity, and from Delhi Business Association. So letters of support, which really spoke very highly that this would, be a good project.
Well, hopefully that clears up some questions that have been out there regarding putting a bike lane / path on Delhi Pike. Okay, so if you do have any questions, so please call the administration office. I guess that would be the first call, right, Pete?
That'd be fine.
Okay, all right.
Second, or in this case, I guess our third topic tonight is the recycling dumpsters. Yeah, come on up, Josh. We have came up with a solution, and actually, this is hot off the press today. We met at the dumpsters this morning I bet we were there about an hour almost.
A while.
Yeah, it was a while. We got to witness a few things which we'll talk about.
Yes, we did.
But which I got some pictures of. But we what's happening is everybody's aware, or if you're not aware, the senior center, we got community development block grant funding to repave it. So we're in the middle of repaving that, just like we had the parks repaved. Delhi Park repaved. The difference there is part of this is the parking lot is going to be concrete because of where the recycling dumpsters are. Those big rumpy trucks are heavy, and they will tear through the blacktop asphalt in seconds. They just ruin it. After dumping 9 dumpsters 3 times a week, it would just make ruts, after a period of time. So we're doing concrete that will support the trucks there as part of the project. Well, in doing concrete, we all know concrete has to cure. It's not just an overnight thing and ready to put them back on it the next day. So temporarily, I believe it's going to be next week.
Yeah, the plan is to start Tuesday morning.
So sometime Monday night or Monday sometimes when they're emptied, we're going to have to do some coordination here, but when the dumpsters get emptied, I believe on Monday, we're probably Public Works Department is going to try to be taking the dumpsters down.
It's 4th of July.
Oh, well, it'll be Tuesday. They may have some stuff in them.
The dumpsters
They're
will
still
be
coming
empty.
Monday?
Yep.
Are they going to run?
They're going to empty them Monday, Dan?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, it'd be still early Tuesday that Public Works will be taking them down. Hopefully they're not too full already. As soon as we empty these, as soon as Rumpke empties these, they're full. People know. But we'll be moving them down to C.O. Harrison. We got permission today. This area, the map that you're looking at, you got Neeb Road there, you see. So we're going to work on some signage, temporary signage to point everybody in the right direction, and we'll try to put a sign. It's going to be kind of difficult in the senior center area because there's going to be work going on. They may not even pull out. We may have to have it at the entrance or something. But we'll point them down, just letting everybody know the recycling dumpsters will be down at C.O. Harrison for about 3 weeks. It just depends on how it's curing, how long it takes to get in. Maybe less, but at least 2 weeks if it goes 3 to see how it cures. Again, we don't want these big heavy trucks ruining something that a lot of money was spent on. So that's the news there. And when we find the for sure dates and exact on moving and all this other stuff, we'll try to put a quick press release out and Facebook and
Twitter.
all that kind of stuff, Twitter and all that. While Trustee Seavey and our Public Works Director Ron and Josh and myself were standing down at the dumpsters, here they are. We noticed there, and you probably can't see in the picture, so I'll zoom in on you. Oh, there's a vacuum cleaner. Last I checked, that was not a recyclable item.
No.
While we were still standing there and cars were lining up to, run to drop off stuff, and you can't see the other side of the car, so we couldn't tell what they were dropping off. Some people we could, but some we couldn't. Then cars left, and they left bags. They weren't putting it in the dumpsters. Oh, a TV. That's nice. Last I checked, I don't think that is
Right in front of us.
Right in front of us. And I just if you have questions on what can be recycled, I think it's mostly common sense, but I mean, we do have information out. We do promote it. It's pretty much anything is recyclable. It's on the dumpsters. Let me state this. Townships, as far as, every government entity has mandates on what they have to do, what they have to provide per either Ohio Revised Code, and that's typically what mandates townships. Providing recycling services is nowhere on that list. The township does this on behalf of the residents to have a way to do this. I think it was really meant at some point in time to help those that couldn't have curbside recycling because they were an apartment complex or something that didn't offer that a way of recycling. We're getting prices from Rumpke on curbside recycling, which we encourage everyone to do. What is happening is that the grant from the recycling is getting less and less and less, and the general fund portion that we're having to spend general fund dollars that we have complained about for how many years that we've lost local government funding, we've been cut by the state, and of course everybody's heard this for years and years that we've said this, that now it's kind of like where we crying wolf, because now we're having to subsidize because the grant money is not paying enough for the dumpsters. So I said all that to say, we are asking, we're begging, please, and do not dump off things that do not. We've had beds, mattresses, box springs, gas grills. Dan, you want to tell us what else, and then you want to tell us what is allowable.
Today, along with the TV and the space heater, I found at least five bags of clothing. It's definitely not a Goodwill store. Also found wooden banisters, pieces of steps. That looks like somebody ripped out a staircase and just dropped it off there. It's probably 3 weeks ago, on a Sunday, I actually filled up the Public Works dumpster with unrecyclable material that people just dropped off. That included a toilet. I think at the last meeting we showed the pictures of those, and various other things that, unfortunately, and this is not just in Delhi. Unfortunately, this is happening. It seems to be happening everywhere. As you alluded to, it's a service that we provide, and people are starting to abuse it too much. We have not. If we start if Rumpke starts receiving a lot of unrecyclable materials in their dumpsters, we do get notified, and if it continues, we do get charged extra. We have not been to that point yet where we've had notification, so we are not crossing their line. But I think it's getting very close. The bags of clothing that were inside the dumpsters today, I happened to catch them before I started compacting them. If I would have compacted them, they would have gone through, and they would have gone down to the recycling center. And it's noted of where each garbage dumpster is.
It's posted right
Yeah,
there.
that's what I'm trying to spit out. It won't come out. And as Mr. Landrum alluded to, it is definitely on each dumpster what is recyclable, what is not recyclable. We have signs down there also posted. That's what's recyclable, what is not. It's all over the website. My office number is on the website also. You can give me a call, and I'll be glad to go over every detailed thing of what you can and what you cannot recycle. This is a great program. Yes, our recycling grant numbers are going down, but we are working closely with Hamilton County trying to get the numbers to change as other communities are looking into different ways of recycling, and they've increased their recycling numbers. Ours have remained a steady recycling number, which is a good number. It's just other communities are stepping up a little bit more. So we're working closely with Hamilton County Environmental Services, trying to discover some new ways to increase our recycling rates.
I think the important piece here is this is not a service that any township is mandated to offer to your residents. This is a service that we would hope that the residents would appreciate and respect. And the opportunity to have these recycling bins has grown from, I think the original was 3 and we're now up to 9. But our location for our dumpsters happens to be on our property in the senior center. But we have neighboring people who live around there in residential areas. We need to be respectful of the people who live around this dumpster, as well as show some respect for yourself not to violate the recycling rules. Look, I use the recycling bins. My family uses the recycling bins. It's a wonderful privilege to go down there and be able to do this. But to Dan's point, the grant money that we used to receive to kind of counterbalance the cost of having these dumpsters, because every time Josh has to take somebody down there, or Dan, you go down and crush the stuff down and pick up the trash around it, it costs us labor money. Those are hours against our salaries. So when it comes that far out of balance, that it is more of an expense that's just being abused, then we'll have to address the dumpsters again. And that's the only thing I can say. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to sound threatening to this. I just want the community to be respectful of an opportunity that they are being given by their township and use it the correct way. Josh, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Actually, Administrator Landrum kind of covered everything that I was going to talk about. So,
Okay. Go ahead, Josh. Okay.
So,
But-
no, I think just for us, it does take up a lot of time. Not just Parks and Recreation, Public Works. They spend a lot of time down there as well, taking care of the dumpster. So, as much as the residents depend on us, we depend on them to keep it clean.
So we're standing there, and the car pulls. There were quite a few cars. In fact, Ron said it was a slow morning, but there were still quite a few cars doing recycling. And the car came up, and they spent a lot of time in the back of their vehicle, and okay, whatever. And as they left, Ron Rippinger looked at me and said, they just left a television. With 4 people standing there, they left a television at the recycling bin. Now, we have Delhi cleanup days, and that's when you bring the television. So this is a plea, this is a request, this is a beg, to use your word, Mr. Landrum. Respect the recycling dumpster in the area around it. If it's full, come back. Don't leave the bag on the outside of the dumpster. We are very fortunate, and I say thank you to the wonderful neighbor and partner that we have in the Oak Hills Local School District, that we are moving the dumpsters temporarily down to C.O. Harrison. Timing was on our side. School's out. There's no activity or traffic coming in and out of the school at this point in time. So they have agreed to allow us to temporarily move the dumpster to the C.O. Harrison lot. So, again, please be respectful of that area. That is our school district, and that is our neighbor. So, Trustee Oswald, speech?
Absolutely. Here's the real problem. I mean, we've found a toilet, a TV, clothes, masters, vacuum. I don't think there's any confusion, the people that are doing this, whether that's recyclable or not. I don't think they're looking at the sign going, well, maybe or maybe not. I think they absolutely know it's not recyclable. They're dumping it, okay? And those same people, a small group that are going to ruin this for everyone, they're not watching these meetings. They're not going to go to Facebook. They're not going to go to our website and find what is because they don't care. They know it's not recyclable. So what does that leave for us to do? I mean, ultimately, I do think it's a small group of people. I don't think it's majority of residents. I think a lot of people do respect it. And it's a small group. So we either have a choice to remove the garbage dumpsters, which I don't want to do, or we're going to have to start citing these individuals for illegal dumping. I mean, that's really, we've got to enforce it. We can't sit back and let it happen. It's only going to get worse, as Dan said. So we've got to pick one way or the other to go. I'd rather see a smaller group of people who are intentionally dumping items they know are not recyclable get cited rather than penalize the whole community for a small group of people. So they clearly know it's not recyclable. They don't care about these meetings. We can shout as long as we want or give reprimands or whatever. They're not going to care. It's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to continue to happen. So ultimately, our backs are going to be up against the wall. We're going to have to make a decision. I can tell you, I'd rather, now it comes in, Braun, do we want to waste another patrol doing illegal dumping sightings? But maybe we do a few, set an example, and word will get out. But we have no other choice. We're going to spend more money getting rid of these, or we have to take them away, or we're just going to have to cite the people that aren't following the rules. I mean, that's what it comes down to. We've put everyone on notice time and time again. There's signs, there's websites, there's Facebooks. Ultimately, these people don't care. Clearly, they don't care. So, I mean, I guess that's the next step if we have to take it. That's my thought.
Trustee Sturts?
Well, obviously, Trustee Oswald and I are on the same path. I know that there is a camera on those dumpsters. Am I correct? Because you caught my husband dumpster diving once. So
There was a camera on the dumpster, and it was actually stolen.
Did you understand that the surveillance camera on the dumpster was stolen?
We viewed somebody actually dumping something in the dumpster, and he kept looking up, and the next, all of a sudden, we saw just his eyes. He put a shirt over his face and stole the camera.
okay, so like I said, I agree. With citing them, if we got another camera that was out of reach of a thief, I mean, obviously you can get a license plate and a friendly little letter to be sent to them saying, next time you're cited. Or I mean, I don't know. I totally agree that something should be done for those few because it's not that they don't know. It's that they don't care. They don't care to know. So we do have a problem. And when we say this costs us money, it puts Dan in an overtime position over almost every pay period to handle this. So it's not just pay, it's overtime on top of that. I mean, he's here on weekends doing this. Nobody should have to do that. But I use it all the time. I'd hate to see it go. But my second question is, we have cleanup day once a year, correct?
Right.
Could we do it 2 times a year? And again, I know that costs money, but could we do that? Would that keep some people? They're willing to save it for 6 months, but maybe not a whole year. I don't know. Something for discussion.
Your average cleanup day runs approximately about $4,000 for the way we do it right now with the roll-off dumpsters. We could probably cut cost if we did an extra cleanup day, probably like in the fall or something like that, because we could probably back off on some of the dumpsters. We wouldn't accept a lot of the things that we accept now, like the whiteware and the tires. So, I mean, it's something that we could look into, and cost savings, we might be able to back off on a couple of dumpsters. Average cleanup day, we will go through 8 40-yard dumpsters, and then usually 1 or 2 dumpsters for tires. So we do go through a lot of, the cleanup day is always well received.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have one citizen signed in on this subject. So, Mrs. Burke, did you want to speak now on the dumpsters?
Well, I'm quite relieved that the dumpsters won't be at my property line temporarily. I know it's going to be a long 3 weeks. And I'm very grateful to everybody who has worked on this project. I'm just relieved. That's all I can say. And I go along with Rose about the twice a year cleanup day. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw, because I saw this in real life, today. The television, I've seen tires up there, and Dan knows this. And I've even seen a box one time of expired food on the cans. And I just irritates me. I am the neighbor, and I have to look at this stuff from my back door. And I'm just, it's just frustrating that people abuse something free and that it's helping the community. So that's all I have to say, but I'm quite relieved about the whole thing. And thank you to everybody for what you did, Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burke. You're a great neighbor to us. All right, anything else?
I just like to remind people, dumpsters are emptied on every Monday, Thursdays, and
Thursday.
Saturdays. The holiday schedule for 4th of July does not change. The only times Rumpke is off for holidays are Christmas and New Year's. We make every effort to keep everything compacted as much as we possibly can. So we just, please, if the recycling bins are overflowing, you can rest assured we are well aware of it. And as soon as we can get a hold of one of our backhoes, we are there to compact everything down. So I just be patient.
All right. Good job, Dan, Josh, and Ron's not here, but Ron helped today. And I just have one little side note. The car that dropped off the television waved to the four of us as they pulled out of the lot. So, thanks, guys.
Which finger?
Yeah, no, full hand.
Yowza.
All right. Mr. Landrum, was that it for department heads? Did you have
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Could I have the reading of the resolution? It's Acting Fiscal Officer Landrum.
Resolution 2016-099, resolution approving purchase order obligations incurred on behalf of the township by the township administrator, authorizing payment of certain purchase order obligations, and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-100, resolution amending appropriations for expenses in various funds, authorizing transfers from one appropriation item to another pursuant to revised code 5705.40, and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
Yes, we have the appropriation amendments. This is adding additional budget out of general fund, $4,207.63. Mr. Feichner will write this down, 4,207.63. He's our FAB member tonight. It is for additional, we only budgeted, I believe, $17,000 for election expenses, and once we got our second half settlement, the election expenses were that much more. So it was like just a little over $20,000 for the cost of the elections, which we have to pay. The next three things are just transfers from the public works funds, from salt to fleet parts. We are having some trucks with needing some more parts and things to be fixed. That's a total transfer of $7,000. We have also in the fire department, we have a transfer from salaries part-time into the Medicare, total of $27,000. That was a little error in budgeting from the fire department, but it's okay with the salaries, the part-time salaries. It's not fortunate, but fortunately we do have the salaries there to pay the Medicare share because of the lack of part-time. We keep having part-timers leave on us. But that was just a budgeting error, but we do have the funds internally to transfer. The next is the Parks Department. and this was due to a full-time employee selecting health insurance now. So we have a $10,000 transfer from part-time seasonal into the health insurance line item. And that's all I have.
Okay.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-101, resolution entering into amendment number 2 with a master agreement with Dynergy Energy Services East, LLC, formerly known as Duke Energy Retail Sales, LLC, authorizing the Township Administrator to execute necessary documents and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Administrator Landrum.
Well, we had this is regarding our aggregation program, our price, and I just wanted to explain this. What's happening is you're going to get a letter in the mail, number one. I'll show you what that looks like soon. The residents will be getting a mailer about this. But basically what's happening is that there's a 0.47 of a cent worth of you could call it a tax, a fee, assessment, by the regulation, those over the electric aggregation, not just aggregation, but over electric. And it's for the infrastructure cost to maintain, and I guess that's a good thing to make sure that they strengthen our infrastructure.
That's federal infrastructure.
Federal, yeah. And with that, our current price is 5.89. Our options are, if we did nothing, it would go up to 0.47, which would take us to 6.36. Well, that's, pretty good jump. So we had a second option, which would be a slight increase, and then do a 2-year extension. So we go up by just 0.10 to 5.99, and then for the 2-year extension, future prices right now are good. Now, anybody knows you would almost be a betting person. You would say, there's no way in 2 years I'm going to be paying less for anything than I'm paying now. I mean, who would think it? Well, it's always a gamble, and 2 years out, the electric people are willing to take that gamble. So they would offer us 5.74, which is well below 0.14 below what we even have right now for the 2-year extension. The third option was, we just stay where we are, but then do a 2-year extension to stay at 5.89 as well. But you see the 5.89 versus the 5.74, we'd still lose out. It's better to go ahead and do a slight increase now for the rest of this year, and then January 1st do 2 years at 5.74. So that is our recommendation of our aggregation experts and myself. I will say that the thought here for the 5.74 2 years, we're going to go ahead and sign. The board will do the approval of the second amendment, but the thought is by our professionals is that it will drop even lower, and we'll amend it again at even a lower price.
And our agreement allows us to drop to the lower price as the supply price. Yes. Now, it's my understanding that all suppliers are going to be assessed with this federal, and I'm really not sure if you call it an assessment or a tax or whatever, which might be the reason all of us are getting more letters in the mail again about aggregation energy services. If you read them carefully, they talk about from now to the end of the year. This is what we're talking about. From now to the end of the year, they're going to offer you a lowball price. At least that's from the letters that Pete and I have looked at. And then you're going to be hooked into a larger, higher price. So what we're trying to do is be an equalizer to the price. I mean, we know that everyone's going to have this assessment. So we're trying to equalize it and have the pain spread over that 2-year period with the understanding that the cost will drop. And our agreement with our aggregation supplier is that our price will fluctuate down.
Right.
Wasn't it called flexing down?
Down. Right. And you got to understand, one thing about the aggregation program. Who represents us? Do you realize that they are Duke's biggest customer of households? So how can they get the price down better than all these others? Because they are the largest provider or customer that Duke has that says, hey, I have blank thousands of homes I'm representing. Give me your best price. Well, that's how this works, and that's what aggregation is about. This is a picture of the letter. So they will be mailing this out next week. So when you see the Delhi Township logo and Dynegy, this is the official part of the aggregation program. So don't throw this away as junk mail. If you ever get anything else about electric or gas about that and it doesn't have the township logo on it, you can, unless it's your bill, feel free to throw it away.
Okay.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-102, resolution declaring certain property no longer needed for public use, obsolete and unfit for the use acquired, authorizing sale by internet auction, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Again, Administrator Landrum?
Yes, we have just one is a sale by auction, will be a vehicle, a Nissan Sentra, which was a forfeiture for the police department. And then we have a list that's been provided to you all, mostly a lot of other police things that I believe are also mostly forfeitures, jack stands, gasoline snow blower. Well, they may not be all forfeitures, but there's a mixture here. Also, some parks. We have a boat trailer that we're selling because we bought a boat and we really don't need the trailer, so we'll sell the trailer. Hopefully make our money back on what we pay for the whole boat and trailer. And they're listed there. And, of course, the gas stove at the senior center that we still have to remove. Somebody can buy that for scrap. So that's it.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-103, resolution declaring certain items of personal property unfit for the use acquired, that the items have no value, authorizing disposal or salvage thereof, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Again, Administrator Landrum?
Just a few things from the fire department on badge and coat and pants from a retiree that has left. That's unusable, reusable, not reusable. And from IT services, a battery backup, a couple battery backups that are no longer usable.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-104, resolution entering into a facilities use agreement with the Delhi Skirt Game Committee for use of Delhi Park for its 2016 annual charity event, authorizing Parks and Recreation Director to execute the agreement and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Again, Parks Director Josh Torbeck.
No big surprises. We're happy to have the skirt game back this year. The only changes were dates, days, minor details. I finally got to remove old basketball court from the parking section, and now it's a beautiful new paved area. So just small changes like that, nothing major.
Super. Okay.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-105, resolution authorizing a contract with Excalibur Musical Group for a concert in the park on July 14th, 2016, authorizing Dan Ryan to execute the contract and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Again, Director Torbeck.
Thank you, trustees. It's just a contract for our July 14th concert in the park, Delhi Park. We're excited to have Excalibur. We know they have a big following. We expect a good night, fun, food, drink. Should be a good time. Everybody come out July 14th. Starts at 7 o'clock.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-106, resolution authorizing the Township Administrator to execute and submit necessary documentation in connection with the filing of the required renewal certification application as a natural gas governmental aggregator and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Administrator Landrum?
Pretty much as it says, I don't know if it's annually or every 2 years or something, 2 years, that we have to resubmit our renewal as an aggregator, public, utilities. This is the this is with the gas. We will also probably within another month or two have the electric one to do similar to. So it's just pretty much. This allows us through the Public Utilities Commission to do our aggregation program.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-107, resolution adopting tax budget for fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2017, pursuant to revised code 5705.28 and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-108, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 186 Francis Ridge Drive to the county auditor for assessment and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-109, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 273 Kinsman Court to the county auditor for assessment and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-110, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 4301 Del Ryan Drive to the county auditor and for assessment and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-111, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 222 Greenwell Avenue to the county auditor for assessment and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-112, resolution declaring nuisance for accumulated debris at 5691 Victory View Lane and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Stahlhaber?
Thank you. In response to a complaint, we inspected this property, finding the violations you see there. We did issue an informal order to no avail during an inspection. Today, the violations persist, and for that reason, we're requesting you declare the property nuisance. We can address this through our nuisance abatement procedures.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-113, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation and accumulated debris at 817 Sun Creek Court and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Again, Mr. Stahlhaber?
Thank you. In response to a complaint, we inspected this property and found the violations you see before you, issuing an informal order to no avail during an inspection. Today, those violations persist, and for that reason, we're requesting you declare the property nuisance. We can address it through the nuisance abatement procedure.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-114, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 577 Rents Place and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Again, Mr. Stahlhaber?
In response to a complaint, we observed the excessive vegetation you see before you, issuing an informal order to no avail during an inspection. Today, those violations persist, and for that reason, we're requesting you declare the property nuisance so we can address it with the nuisance abatement procedures.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-115 has been pulled. Resolution 2016-116, resolution declaring nuisance for accumulated debris at 318 Glen Oaks Drive and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. Stahlhaber?
In response to a complaint, we inspected the property, finding the debris that you see before you, issuing an informal order to no avail during an inspection. Today, those conditions persist, and for that reason, we're requesting you declare the property nuisance so we can address it through the nuisance abatement procedures.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-117, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 5346 Foley Road and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. Stahlhaber?
In response to a complaint, we inspected, finding the conditions that you see before you. Those are actually in the rear yard. The front yard is actually maintained. This is an occupied property as well. We did issue informal orders of no avail. Inspection today revealed everything as it was, and for that reason, we're requesting you declare the property nuisance so we can address it through the nuisance abatement procedures.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-118 has been pulled. Resolution 2016-119, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 3960 Delhi Pike and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. Stahlhaber?
In response to a complaint, we inspected the property, finding the conditions that you see before you. Those are the side and rear yards of the property. The front yard is being maintained. Did issue informal orders of no avail. During inspection today, those conditions persist, and for that reason, we're requesting you declare the property a nuisance so we can address it through our nuisance abatement procedures.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-120 has been pulled. Resolution 2016-121, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation and accumulated debris at 508 Anderson Ferry Road and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Again, Mr. Stahlhaber?
Again, in response to a complaint, we inspected the property, finding the conditions that you see before you, issuing an informal order during an inspection today. Not only do the violations persist, but the debris is roughly doubled in amount. And so for that reason, we're requesting you declare the property nuisance so we can address it through the nuisance abatement procedure.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Landrum, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Citizens' comments. I do have one citizen signed in this evening. As is our usual rule, we limit all citizens' comments to 5 minutes. Good evening, Mr. Swenson.
Time doesn't start till he gets to.
Yeah, the time doesn't start till you get here, so take your time.
And we thank you for wanting to listen to me. I don't know that the 5-minute rule is covered under the Bill of Rights. It would take longer to read the First and the Ninth Amendment, so I won't appeal to that. Anyway, if you haven't been to the park lately, I can sum up my feelings in there in one 3-letter word: wow. It looks beautiful, all the new roadways. I had a number of things I wanted to bring up on it, but I'll only bring up one because we're talking about garbage tonight. We're going to need new garbage cans all through the park, and that stuff all costs money. So why not come up with a plan where people could adopt a garbage can? And I remember when I was in business, if this would have come up, I would have jumped on it right away. A garbage can could be very decorative and look very nice. Get a state-of-the-art one that's square, and then a side door on it, and you can pull the can out of there and have a bag in there and so on. Now, the decorating of these cans could start something really all over the place. Right now, sign companies have these, I call them plastics things, and they can decorate them. They could put somebody's logo on there, put them on all sides of those cans. People could adopt it, businesses could adopt one, different kind of clubs could adopt one, anything, families, whatever, and then it would decorate the park. And of course, it'd be much easier taking the garbage out of there when you don't have to take the top off the can and lift something out. And this could be a state-of-the-art thing that would start. Now, they could be placed, of course, in all of our parks. And if somebody didn't like their location, we could rotate them very easily. The outside container would be square. So you can take the number one, have a map of them. There's a beautiful map that they put up about the park now. It's on one of the billboards. Anyway, you could move number 1 to number 2, and number 2 to 3, and then the last one would be back at number 1. So you could rotate them about every 2 months, something like that. Now, those kind of things would really decorate the park, and we wouldn't have to buy them. The people that would do them, I could probably get a number of businesses I could mention that would do that right away. They would go for it. They would buy the can and pay the sign people to make the signs and put them on that thing. Now, that may seem like it was a very simple little thing. I've been doing this all my life, and I just was thinking this morning some of the stupid things I've come up with. That one of them with the post office, but they should put mirrors on the front of their trucks so you look down in front of them. That was in 1957. I wrote it up, had a letter carrier sign it, and he turned it in. They adopted it. They gave him a certificate to hang on a wall and $25 for the idea. And the mail trucks, school buses, all of them have those mirrors down in front of them. I went to Frank's Tea and Spice one time and I said, can you put up stuff in little plastic bags? He said, no, we don't have it. Took the idea, you can go in now to any grocery store and you can go down an aisle and it's all full of those plastic bags. I wanted to put chili spices in it. I probably have 100 of those things. So this idea may sound a little bit bizarre because we're talking about garbage tonight anyway. You know, it's in the subject. But that's one of those things that would really work. Also, I've watched now with the new driveways and the bumper things, I've watched the traffic slow down, and I go to the park quite often. And I noticed that there's a lot of cars that used to cut through real fast, don't come through anymore. They go somewhere else because they hit those bumper things and bounces their cars around, which that is very good. It's worked. And I think a nice sign at each entrance, a small billboard that would say, people and critters have right-of-way on the driveway. And I stopped today. There was a grandmother, had 3 little ones, and she was going to cross the driveway, and she saw me, and she stopped, and I stopped and waved her on. There was no other traffic. And the reason I do that is I have a grandnephew that just got hit by a car 2 months ago up in Minnesota. His grandmother, my niece, had the 1-year-old in her arm and had the little 3-year-old by the hand, and a car came around the corner, and it's in an intersection. There was no traffic, small town, and this guy is, you know, driving his pickup truck, but he's also talking to his hand. And the little guy stepped a half a step in front of the grandmother, got hit by the pickup truck, broke his arm, hit him in the head. He's all right for that. But if we had a sign like that, and if we can tell them, look, the speed limit is there and it can be fined. You can pay for a fine. That's really all I have. You know, and one other thing I had is that don't build some big edifice in there of stone and concrete, because after a few years it starts to fall apart, and then you have to really take care of it again and again. And the land in Delhi moves. The edifice doesn't move. And when I did a subdivision back in the 1970s, I had a soil guy come in and he said, after 17 years in Delhi, you can go outside your house and put your hand between the soil and the foundation. The soil moves that much. Anyway, I think that'd be a good thing to do. We could get that together. I'd help anybody want to do it. And the people, the business people would buy the garbage can and pay for the decoration, and be something that'll dress it up that may take off all around the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I believe, Director Torbeck, you've been working on something for regulating signage in the park, so, and I'll accept his his compliment on how great the asphalt looks. That's to Josh and to Ron Rippiger, both Public Works and Director of Parks. So I'm glad everyone is enjoying the new look of the parks with some fresh asphalt. Announcement of community events. Acting Fiscal Officer Landrum.
The Delhi Township Veterans Association General Meeting is Tuesday, July 12th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. at the Delhi Senior Community Center, 647 Neeb Road. Meetings are open to anyone who wants to learn more about the organization and membership. See their website, delhiveterans.com, for more information. Delhi Branch Library Program, Cookie Decorating with Lisa Donaldson of Cincinnati Cake and Candy Supplies, Tuesday, July 12th, 2016 at 7 p.m. at the Delhi Branch Library, 5095 Foley Road. Adult program registration is required. Call 369-6019 or email marybreath.bressel@cincinnatilibrary.org to learn more. The Bicentennial Celebration Concert Delhi in the Park, hosted by the Delhi Township Parks and Recreation Department. Yay, hooray. Please, everybody, come to that Thursday, July 14th, 2016 at 7 p.m. It's, of course, in Delhi Park, 5195. Concert is free and open to the public. Excalibur will perform at 7 p.m. at the old Tot Lot area, the old basketball court kind of in front of that area, near the Foley Road entrance. Food, drinks, and everybody don't pass out here. Food, drinks, and beer will be available for purchase. I'm not a drinker, but this supports Bicentennial, so please buy beer to support the Bicentennial. Bicentennial Celebration Delhi River View Kiwanis Rollin' on the River Car Show is Sunday, July 24th, 2016. Gates open at 8 a.m. for registration. Fernbank Park, 50 Thornton Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio. Open show, all makes, all models. Registration can be done online at rollingontherivercarshow.com. Proceeds support local food pantries and charities serving Delhi, Riverside, Sailor Park, and Sedansville. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We do have cause for executive session this evening, so may I have the motion? Mr. Landrum.
Flip back. Motion 2016-111 to retire to executive session to consider the compensation of public employees and purchase of real estate.
I move motion 2016-111 to retire to executive session to consider the compensation of public employees and purchase of real estate.
I second the motion.
Mr. Landrum, may I have a call? Roll call, please.
Mr. Seavey? Mrs. Seavey? Knew I was going to do that.
I think I left him at home.
Yeah, I think he's at home, yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Motion passes. We will adjourn now to the executive session. There will be no, next meeting will be on Wednesday, July the 13th. So everyone, we will see you that night to encourage everyone to again be at the concert the following night on July the 14th at the Delhi Park with Excalibur to celebrate Delhi's bicentennial. So look forward to seeing all of you then. Thank you.
Happy 4th of July.
Oh, yes, happy 4th of July. And you?
Happy 4th.